My name is Jennifer Wennekers.
I'm on Leslie.
And my name is Faith.
We're out of band. So we took a short break, but we're back again, fully energized. And today we want to discuss a topic which might be a little controversial according to some people. Others might be fully okay with it, but we still want to address it. Tokenism. So first of all, the term may not be very familiar to most people or may not ring a bell immediately. So let's discuss first, what is tokenism actually?
So, well, I think we probably all have had some experience of it. It's, being placed in a scenario or a situation because of being a woman, for example, or Faith, a woman of color, Black woman, because for reasons of political correctness, because the optics look good, because the one that I've had most often is in situations related to conferences, right? If there's a panel, for example, and suddenly the conference organizers realize, oh, hang on, it doesn't look great. They're all male, they're all white. Oh, let's go get a woman.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. So it used to absolutely infuriate me. It used to drive me mad. And then I mellowed a little bit about it, not because I think it's right, but because I got more confident about my own value. It really used to bother me when I wasn't very secure about the value that I represent or what I can bring. But, growing more confident about that, I got a little bit more perspective on it, and I kind of got a bit more pragmatic in the sense that representation needs to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And if that means that I get brought in as the token woman, okay, so be it, because there wasn't a woman before, there is one now.
Yeah.
I'm being brought in because they needed somebody who wasn't white and male, but it gives me a platform and it gives me the opportunity to demonstrate that I can add value. And my objective in doing that is that I get invited back, not because I'm not a white male, but because I have something to say.
Yeah.
And you can also bring other women thereafter, right?
Yeah, because most organizations actually kind of confuse tokenism with diversity and also with diversity quota. But in effect, if you unfortunately are subjected to tokenism, you usually just end up being kind of a show pony, one in your kind, and just put in front like, hey guys, look at this, we have a woman, or hey guys, we have people of color in our organization panel, however you want to call it.
Yeah, so basically tokenism, at least for me, is just doing something to tick a box, right?
Yeah.
So putting a Black girl in the panel so that Black people are represented.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or putting a woman HRC, there just because there needs to be a woman. So
And the thing actually that I found a little bit paradoxical and in some ways surprising is that the people who have made me the token, particularly in conference panels, they're women.
Really?
Yeah. The organizers of these events, they're not universally women, but there are a lot of women. And the ones who have approached me and who have actually said to me, well, we realized that we only had white men. And I was there going, okay, I get that, right? I get that you want to widen the spectrum. And I was there kind of wondering, should I expect them to lie about it? I mean, if they really believe that the only reason that I'm there is because I'm not white, sorry, I'm not a white male. I am white, but I'm not a male. And I was there kind of going, should I have respect for them that they're being so upfront about their real motive?
Yeah.
Or should I reprimand them for it, going, okay, I can be a non-white male and have something to say. You know, they're not mutually exclusive. And yeah, I mean, I did kind of chastise myself the last time this happened. I was there, I should have said something to her about that, by all means, approach me. and say, we want to have a female perspective. We want to have somebody who's not a white male. And we thought of you because you are that, but you also have something to say. And it's the fact that I think like the thing about the tokenism is that it's a characteristic of me, a single characteristic, because I am female. But that's not all I am. You know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff about me that could be brought into that realm and say, you know, I have domain expertise, I work in security, you know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But the only reason that I sort of have been brought into these situations, and it's almost always conferences, is because I'm a woman. And I think it's the focusing on that single narrow dimension that makes it tokenism and makes it very demeaning sometimes.
Faith, what is your opinion?
Yeah, so I think what in 2017, around 2017, I was selected to go to a conference. It was actually Grace Hopper conference. I hadn't heard about it, and I needed to travel to the US for that. But for me, in the very beginning, it bothered me because I felt as if I was selected because I'm the Black girl, you know, the Black girl who needs to go there. And I'm like, you know, why do that? But in retrospect, I thought about it that, you know, it was actually a good opportunity because who else will they select? I was the only Black girl. So who else were they going to select? That's one. And I got an opportunity to meet so many women in security that really, you know, sparked my appetite to actually move solely into security. So yeah, in the beginning, it was a negative thing for me because I'd never really been subjected to that, or that's what I think. Yeah, I think that was the only time that I've been subjected to something as a, yeah, you know what, Hugh. But come to think of it, I think it was just because I was the only person. So it wasn't really anything cynical. Yeah. And I did benefit from it at the end of the day. So yeah.
So where tokenism for me, for example, differentiates from diversity is that tokenism usually is where diversity for expertise, group members, whatever, usually is an afterthought versus being there from the start, whether it is if you're building up a team, whether it is if you're having panel speakers, whether it is you have a representative group that you want to show to the world. For tokenism, it is like, okay, we selected these kind of speakers, you take a look at them, and then you're suddenly realizing, oh, maybe we need to have a couple of other different people to speak to a different audience, basically. Whereas if you organize something with a diversity purpose or rooted in diversity, then you already think of which representatives, which speakers, which group members, team members, however you want to call it, you want to have incorporated from the get-go, basically.
But Jennifer, one thing I think I don't agree with is the fact that let's say we have, let's say, a call for papers where we ask for people to make applications and then everyone applies. Then at the end of it, you see that, oh, damn, it's all male, or it's all Blacks, or it's all whites. We need to diversify it a little bit. I don't think that would really be tokenism because...
No, correct.
Because I didn't start with it. I didn't start with the thought of, you know, I didn't actually start with diversity at thought. I just I just asked them to apply for it. But later when you actually see the applicants, you understand that, okay, I need some diversity here. Yeah. So in that particular case, I wouldn't call it tokenism. I would still call it diversity.
But can I finish that? You can. What I would consider then in such a situation is that you actually don't have a diversity problem in effect. Of course you do, but more that you are specifically talking to just one very siloed audience part, and that you're not well known at different other types of groups. So then it's not necessarily the issue with the calling out for speakers or calling out for papers, for example, but it is basically that your organization in itself or your group in itself is just not talking or well known with other types of audiences.
Yeah,
That's pretty much what I was about to say. I think the issue one that you're touching on there, Faith, is one of pipeline in a certain sense, right? Which is you call for papers, and there are a number of things. Is first, who is submitting? Who's getting the message? Who then makes the effort of doing it? You know, do they feel there's any point to them doing it, or do they feel they're going to get a fair evaluation? And then you probably need to look at the process as well. You know, is there bias embedded in the selection process? It's like when they do blind auditions, and you know, you don't know the name, the color, the creed, or the gender of the people performing, and you actually get very, very different results in terms of the selection, because no matter how unbiased we all think we all are. So looking at firstly who's submitting, who is receiving the message that we want to bring you in, then the process of selection, and then the difference. I think there's kind of the nuance between looking at, in your case, saying, right, well, we don't have any Black people. That's not okay. And bringing in Black people, I agree with you. I don't think that's tokenism, but the intention is different.
Yeah.
Bringing you in and saying, we want to bring in Black people because it's important. It's important for representation. It's important for the quality of the event, the quality of the discourse, the debate, the ideas, the outcome. That's very different from saying we're going to bring in Faith because it's going to make us look good. So the black washing of, we're friends of the Black community, but the intention is different. The intention of furthering the cause of diversity, the action of you bringing you in could be the same, but the intention behind it's very different. It's not we're trying to make ourselves look good. It's we're trying to bring in Black people because we know it matters. And that's very different.
So ladies, straight up, back to like office. The office environment. Have you ever felt that you've been used as a token for anything? Straight up.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you okay to talk about it? Not everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly the woman thing, right? So I used to work in banking, male dominated, work in security now, lots of males too. And it's this question of intention, and is it for the optics, right? That's the kind of tokenism that really gets my goat. I'm going to bring you in because it has to start somewhere. Somebody has to show that there is a place for women. I'm okay with being the token in that instance, because getting the platform is important.
And it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. Now, where I have a problem being used as a token is when it is perpetual. I'm okay with being used as a token as a door opener. I am not okay with being the token woman that we roll out,
used and abused.
The optics look good on it. That is not okay. I'm okay to be the icebreaker, the door opener, the starting point, and I will suck that up. But I am not okay to be rolled out just because somebody suddenly realized, oh, we've only got white men. No, not okay with that.
Yeah,
I agree. What have you, Jennifer?
Yeah, so kind of the same for me. I mean, tokenism in itself can somehow somewhat be okayish, I guess. I mean, it does provide you sometimes with opportunities that normally not necessarily would have been provided to you. Say, speak at a conference or have a paper published, or I don't know, being part of specific panels or whatever. But I agree with Anne and also with you, Faith, that if it's on a perpetual basis, if it's purely only to show like, hey, we have a woman, look how diverse we are, and it's not necessarily also to showcase my qualities and my expertise, which I still think I'm a professional and I want to showcase basically, then it kind of gets annoying and it gets bothersome. I've had in the past, for example, during education or during previous work experiences, that it was leaning more towards the look how diverse we are, look how good we have women on board, either in the education or on our team. That is not what I want to do, not what I want to be involved with, or what I want to be asked for anymore.
I'm not a model.
No, I've done the best because I thought, hey, an opportunity is an opportunity, so let's go for it. But the older I get and the more experienced I am, I do start to weigh the pros and the cons, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, what kind of effect is that going to have then on me personally, my professional, and also on my career?
Yeah. And sometimes I've just asked, like, why are you putting me there? What exactly is the intention? That's the worst thing about being a blabbermouth, right? You tend to ask questions.
Why? Very good question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've also been in, sorry, Anne. I've also been in that situation, not, okay, at least for me, not so many times, but you know, if you put me in front of your customer, you better be ready and willing to give me the platform to speak. Yeah. Because otherwise I'm not going to just sit there and do nothing or say nothing just because you want to see your customers, you want your customers to see that, hey, we have a diverse set of skills, diversity. Yeah, so
just don't speak.
So long as it's a door opener, so long as it's an opportunity, a platform, that's fine. But I'm not going to be your pawn.
No.
That's a really good expression, actually, to say you don't want to be a pawn, because it's about serving other people's agendas, right? In terms of being given a platform, it needs to have a kind of a reciprocal benefit, which is, you know, you're doing it for whatever organization you're working for. But we, you know, and we can have sort of a servant mindset, right? Which is we want to give back, we want to enable, whatever, and just as part of doing our jobs. But it doesn't mean that we get instrumentalized. And that's the dangerous part of being a token, because it's not always explicit. And while I am okay to an extent, like you said, Jennifer, right? I'm okay at being used because in my mind, it's representation. And if I'm there, then other women can emulate and see that it's possible, that they can also do it. But once you have been used as a token, you don't know what's going on in other people's minds. I might think I'm not a token anymore. I'm here on my merit. Yeah. I can't be sure what other people think of me. And the only thing that I can actually be sure of is I'm not here as a token, right? So creating my own platform with you guys is a way of being sure that I'm not a token. I just need to get that, but I will be right back.
No worries. No, but I fully agree with Anne. I mean, it can work in your favor. It can be beneficial to you, but you need to, or at least I for myself, I have to weigh the pros and cons of like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to act in this case as a token or showcase myself as a woman with this kind of expertise at this kind of setting, what is it going to give me and what am I going to get back? And also what kind of consequences will it have on how people perceive me, for example?
Yeah. In the beginning, they won't really perceive you well, right? Some will not perceive you well, but does it really matter?
I guess not. I mean, if
your intention is clear.
Yeah. I mean, in any way and this is regardless of the fact that we're working in cybersecurity. I guess that this is for any type of profession. You always need to make a name for yourself, and you need to get known, either expertise or for certain activities or whatnot. And I guess it takes a while also to convince people that you're not necessarily just someone who can recite certain scripts or certain lines, but that they're really your ideas, and that they're really also how you interpret the world and what you've experienced up until now.
Yeah. So I guess what we're saying is that tokenism can be negative, but sometimes can also be a positive thing that would lead to opening doors for others. And in our case, I know, like in cybersecurity, we have not very many people, very few women, very few Blacks, non-existent. And sometimes we will be used as a token. It just how we turn it around and how we create a platform for ourselves and the rest that matters.
Yeah, fully agree. It's how you use it.
Yeah. I mean, tokens, if you kind of extend the discussion a little bit, tokens kind of feed into the question, the big debate around quotas, right? Because like tokens are sort of individuals, quotas are sort of an institutional response to it. And there's still, the jury is out on whether or not quotas are a good idea. I'm rarely on the fence, but I am on the fence about quotas. I oscillate for and against, based on anecdotal evidence and stuff that I see, because I see women, for example, being put into positions of leadership sometimes. I've seen it in banking, I've seen it in different industries, and they're there because of their gender, not necessarily because they are the best person for the job. And it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman, but putting somebody in a position of influence and authority where they have an impact on other people's careers, when they're not the right person for the job, the impact of that is significant. And it doesn't actually do women any favors whatsoever to put women in the wrong position. Now, it doesn't mean they are not qualified or gifted or talented. They're just not the right person for that job.
And that's a problem that, sorry, Jennifer, and that's a problem I have with organizations, right? When they decide on, putting women as tokens or on quotas, on trying to diversify their what's a word? Help me, what's a word? To diversify their skill set, they are not prepared, right? They only think of bringing people in. They don't think of what next, how then will we grow that woman who's in a leadership position to actually be a good leader? How are they going to improve the skill set or upskill the minority to be, people that are better skilled or good, well skilled to actually do their job? They just forget about it. It's like you get dumped into something and then you're like, oh yeah, you know what, swim. It's a really painful question thing for me.
And then they end up being surprised about the fact that it sometimes can crash and burn, and that all of a sudden you have a person who's not suitable for the job or doesn't require the right skills, and this is important, and hasn't been either coached, guided, or trained to get up to that expected level.
And then what actually happens in those instances is that you'll have the people with their confirmation bias who will look at those facts in an isolated way and say, oh yeah, but look, women not
can't be in that
whatever
role. Underachievers.
They're not fit for leadership positions, or they're not good at whatever. But it's exactly what you said, Faith. Are we setting up women for success? It's diversity. I've been thinking about this a lot. Diversity and inclusion have a tendency to be placed together in sentences and policies, but they're actually not the same thing. like diversity is necessary but insufficient. Inclusion is, again, a kind of corollary of it, but you know, are we including everybody regardless of whether they're different? Because I've been in, you know, I've been in scenarios where we have a room of very homogenous people, and yet some people are excluded. So inclusion is not just about diversity, it's part of it. And it's a journey, you know, bringing, like you say, Faith, right? Bringing people in who are different, starting point.
Yeah.
Can be quotas, can be the token Black person, the token white woman, or the Asian woman, or the just LGBTQ, you know, just people who are not part of the demographic.
The normal.
But then how do we make sure that they have a place and feel valued and can thrive and can contribute? And diversity does not equal inclusion, and one does not have a causal, you know, it's not because you're diverse that you're necessarily inclusive. You can be inclusive and not diverse. You can be neither. And it requires a lot, like you say, thought, planning, effort, and intention. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. And I saw a good TED talk that basically says that we will not reach that, you know, inclusivity or belonging if we do not have any accountability, you know, from the management level. There needs to be someone who's accountable for it. So like one of the questions I think that I always ask is, okay, you see numbers on LinkedIn or whatever statistics that you're looking at, that organizations say that, yeah, we're like 30% diverse. We have 30% diversity. When I look at it, it's diversity in the areas that are visible. You don't have diversity at the roots where some of us are. You have diversity at the CXO levels and the management levels, not at my level. No. So yeah, so when I think some accountability is necessary for us to actually achieve that, you know, being an inclusive organization or a place where people can belong.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, if you connect, for example, then accountability with those quota, then you will actually have a far more successful way of filling those quota, because you will not be placing women just because they're women. You will be placing women, and because you're held accountable, you will make sure that they will also succeed, basically.
So yeah, I mean, there's a guy called Charlie Munger who works with the very famous billionaire Warren Buffett, and he has a saying, which is, if you're not thinking about incentives, you're not thinking. And you know, tying incentives to accountability, which is, we need executive and managerial mindset and behavioral change in some ways.
Motivation.
In order to drive that, there need to be incentives.
Yeah.
And the incentives are linked to accountability, but there still needs to be an incentive. And there are people who do it because they believe it's the right thing to do, but it's hard work. You know, change is hard work. Maintaining the status quo, even if it's terrible, is easier, right? Maintaining just a state of inertia is a lot less effort, and it's less risk, and it's a whole lot of other things. So I think we need to think about the incentives that are in place, that the people who have influence and authority feel a reason, a compelling reason to do something different. Because just a belief in a cause, while some people have it, I don't think there's a critical mass of people who have that as a driving force.
Yeah. So I guess transitioning to the prevention, because we've already brought up in incentivizing the at the management level. What can we at the grassroots levels, or at the, you know, at the lower levels do? Because it's not everything cannot be burdened on managers. What can we do, or what is the recommendation?
Yeah, no. Are you asking to prevent tokenism, or are you asking to increase diversity?
To prevent tokenism.
Okay. For me, that would be linked with indeed having a more diverse mindset within the organization to start with.
So that's
Secondary,
a culture.
That's culture, definitely. That would definitely be playing into it. And what would also help is, as an individual, being able and daring to ask questions on why you want me at that specific event, paper, whatever.
And what will come out of it.
Yeah.
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 I don't know whether we need to remove tokenism. Like it has a lot of negative connotations, right? And the idea that you're only going to be rolled out because you are the trophy in some way, that's wrong. But if it's done in a way where it's a vector to change, it's not a bad thing. Yeah. But if it is serving just, you know, cynical optics, if that's all it is, and if there is no real intent to make the representation better, to allow different populations with different ideas and life experiences and perspectives to participate as equals, then it's a problem. When it's cynical, that needs to be eradicated. When it's serving somebody else for selfish reasons, that needs to be eradicated. And if it's demeaning the person who is being the token, yeah, not okay with that ever.
Yeah. But so understand the intention.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot about the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's culture, right? You say, you know, and are we in organizations where we can have that conversation, where it's okay to say, you know, why do you want me? And some places it's okay to say that, and some places it's
they'll look at you like,
yeah. Yeah.
What are your, what do you think that needs to happen at our level, or what kind of things you can do to prevent being a negative token?
Yeah, I agree with what you've said. Ask the questions, understand the intention. But if you've been put there as a token, use it as a platform to turn it around. Remember that you're there representing other people. And if you fail, you have basically shut down the door for the rest. So transform it.
Yeah. That's really important. And not everybody is minded that way, though. You know, when there's a shared sense of responsibility, which is I have a duty to myself, but I have a duty to more than myself. And I've realized that while I kind of assume that everybody has a slightly altruistic part to their nature, not everybody does. So finding an environment where that is valued and you can do that without being used is really important too.
I mean, I fully agree. But at the same time, it's also silly that we consistently need to consider how our representation to the outside world comes across and can reflect on other women as well at the same time.
Yeah. And to be honest, I've read a lot of articles, at least from the women of color, and it is really a burden because you understand that you're the only one who's walking that, you know, that path. And if you mess up, basically you've closed doors for everyone, and it's a constant burden. So if organizations can diversify their pipeline, at least you won't be the only one who's responsible for the other people getting in. Yeah.
Fully agree.
So a big topic, and I'm sure we will revisit it, but maybe we're good for today on this. But yeah, it would be interesting actually to have some feedback from I'd be curious actually if we get any feedback from men, if they ever feel that they're used as tokens. To see if it'd be interesting to see if we can find a guest maybe.
Sometimes I see some men being used as tokens.
But it'd be fun, right? I think that would be an interesting discussion. Maybe we'll have a guest. We'll bring on a guest.
Absolutely. So
Jennifer, do you want to wrap it up?
yes, I just wanted to ask, any last thoughts, opinions, things that we want to say before closing out?
I think we're good.
Okay. Then to our audience, again, thanks so much for the support. Please like and subscribe, share wherever possible. And if you want to be a guest speaker, like for example, Jurgen did previous session, please reach out to us and we'll make it happen. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.